But again, all of this is about the people who benefit from the modernity of which they sit in 2020, but want to pretend that everything that got them to the place where they're paid lots of money to play sport, or they're paid to be able to go to a university or to sit on a city council or to be in the Senate, all of these things, of course, you keep that because we'll get to run it, but we'll get rid of all of the reasons that set it up. And I want to bring you to this, another example about the idiocy happening out of somebody who went to Harvard University. This is what she did on TikTok in the past couple of days.
The next person who has the sheer nerve, the sheer entitled caucasity to say all lives matter, I'm gonna stab you. I'm gonna stab you. And while you're struggling and bleeding out, I'm gonna show you my paper cut and say, my cut matters too.
The caucasity, I'm going to stab you. But of course, after people started to notice that that's a somewhat unpleasant thought, of course it was all a joke and we should forgive her.
It was hyperbole and political satire, and actually it was a good TikTok.
Harvard University, Bronwyn. Harvard University.
Well, Paul, as I've said again and again, all revolutions are the same. And interestingly enough, Matt wrote about the French Revolution, which I've said it doesn't matter whether it's the French Revolution or the Bolshevik Revolution or Hitler's National Socialist Revolution or Mao's Revolution. They're all the same. They want to destroy the existing rules and civilization that exists, and out of that they expect their own utopia to arise. Now, as Lord Acton wrote about the French Revolution, he said that the thing that is most important is that they were planned well in advance by minds who had a plan, and then they used the mobs to bring it about.
Exactly.
And the French Revolution, they were called the sans-culottes, the people without breeches. They were the criminals, the prostitutes, all those people. And the same people are being rounded up, the disaffected, the people who are bored, who whatever, in what we're seeing now. But boy, do we have to fight. Because we have to fight against what's happening in our world now. And we are in the situation where if we don't get out of Paris, and I'm saying this for the simple reason that this gives substance to our fight against what's happening in our region. Right now, we are being pulled around by the hook we've put in our own mouth. That very essence of belonging or signing up to the Paris Agreement has meant we are advantaging China, which is the current revolutionary force, if you like, going in our neck of the woods. And if we don't get out of Paris, then every time they buy our coal and our iron ore, they are making with our products the same turbines that they're sending back here into Australia that we then subsidise so that we can't afford to go back into manufacturing, so we're forced to buy from them again. True. We have put that hook in our own mouth, and we have to stop.
Matt, when you talk about the French Revolution, a perfect example of something that happened that is a direct echo of that. Jeff Bezos, richest man in the world, he, of course, doesn't kiss the lefty ring passionately enough, doesn't look into the eyes well enough, even though he's got the Washington Post and all the rest of it here. They set up a guillotine out the front of his house. A guillotine out the front of his house. What do you reckon the message is they're trying to send there in a direct correlation back to the revolution of which you speak?
I hadn't heard that, Paul. That's quite shocking. I mean, my piece today tried to not exaggerate. The adolescent attempts we've seen to establish autonomous zones and these things, we can all have a good laugh about. And I still think there's time here to reorient this ship. But they're all what we're seeing as symptoms of the fact that we haven't strongly enough defended what is right and meritable about our society and our civilisation. And the sooner we get back to doing that, the better we I think, will resist these attempts. I do think we're a bit better off here in Australia. I think the Howard government in particular invested strongly in supporting our country, supporting events like Anzac Day, and we saw a great resurgence in that type of productive patriotic pride. And I like the fact that Prime Minister these days, he's added to the start of speeches recognising veterans. We need to do more of that sort of stuff to invest in our symbols and the rituals that go with having pride in one's nation and one's country. And that will be the greatest protection against this cultural pandemic that is going through large parts of Europe and North America.
James, how do we fight? Because there'll be plenty of people watching us right now who go, look, it's great to watch this show, it's great to see the four of us pushing, but it feels like the straitjacket is already on us and, well, the end is obvious.
The most important thing to acknowledge and recognise right up front, Paul, is that we are not alone. In fact, we're in very good company. The vast majority of the Australian people feel the same way that we do. Every time a poll is conducted about whether Australians feel pride in their country, feel pride about our history, support our flag, support our institutions, want to keep Australia Day on the 26th of January, the overwhelming majority of Australians support it. We sometimes get a distorted picture of that majority support because the minority perspective is much more overrepresented in media circles, in political circles, in public discussion through social media. But we have to remember it is an isolated minority point of view, and that's the point that Matt was making. Majorities need to be conscious of the fact that we can't take our values for granted, we can't take our institutions for granted. If we aren't actively engaged in defending them, if we're complacent about that, then small minorities can take hold and can have disproportionate influence and send us in a very regrettable direction. So what it requires from everyone who feels the way we do is to stand up and to speak out and to make ourselves heard and to express it as clearly as possibly through the ballot box whenever you have the opportunity.
Ronnie, you get the last word.
Well, very simply, I have said that I'm not the greatest expert in the world, but I have studied socialism and I know what its outcome is. These demonstrations we're seeing here, the ones we're seeing in the United States, they are socialist movements and the outcome is inevitable. It is always about aggression. It is always about trying to destroy. And if we don't stand up to it, and that means our leaders have to take a very strong stand against it. And these, you both senators, you're there in the party room, speaking out, making it strong. Why are we still in the Paris Agreement? Why aren't we recognising that it's assisting socialism? Why are we not protesting stronger? Can you tell me that?
Matt,
Paul,
you go first.
I'm happy to add to that, Paul, if you give me the last word. Look, I agree with Bronwyn. We should be getting out of the Paris Agreement. I've said that. Now, look, that's not the government's policy. I admit that. But Bronwyn's absolutely right that this is a pro-China agreement. That's what it does. It lets China off the hook. Effectively, Obama had to give China everything they wanted to get them to sign up. It's a bad deal. We should get out of it. Not against us trying to do reasonable things to lower carbon emissions, but you know, in a week where we've announced $270 billion of defence spending because of the volatility in our region, why is it that we can't build a coal-fired power station? Because
yes, exactly.
I tell you what, if somebody wants to attack us in the future, and just an if, they're not going to need a map of the terrain and the troop placements around a country. They'll just need a weather forecast, because when it's a cloudy and windless day, we'll be completely unprotected.